Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. This is Friday. We're going to be finishing up this week's theme of instrumental songs with my personal selection from the poll, and there's just no way that I couldn't have selected this one. I told myself if they didn't get picked for the random selections on Wednesday and Thursday, I was going to have to do it for one simple reason. This looks like a marching band, but these guys are not on a field. And I'm intrigued. What's going on here? So, yeah, the band's called MEUTE or MEUTE. Not sure if that E is silent. The song is called You and Me, and it's the Flume remix. Let's get into this. Let's see what's going on. I'm excited. Yeah. Very expressive. Ooh. Yeah, nice little bit of call and response. That's gorgeous. Dude, that marching xylophone though. Come on. That thing looks heavy. I've never had to wear one before. When I played xylophone, it was on the pit. I just rolled it out and it sat there on the ground. Real nice. Yeah, real warm chords. Ooh. Yeah, those real short syncopated staccato notes give this a real light bounciness. Dang, they got like full kits on them. Little embellishment on that bell is real nice. They're going on a bit darker route here. Yeah, I'm loving this. It's like switching from bombast to some smooth jazz elements, while always retaining this pop idea in the musical floor. I love it. Yeah. Trumpet solo, let's go. Yeah. gorgeous. That melody writing was just... Bringing it down for a moment. We're going to bring it back up though, right? Oh. Okay. The final swell. So yeah, very cool. There's a lot to talk about here. Interestingly, not too much about the music itself. They definitely took a specific angle on that. We're going to get into that in a moment. But I do want to get into some of the surface level ideas here before we dig it deep a little. One thing that I think is interesting is that they have the presence of a marching band. They have marching jackets. That's about as far as that goes. Oh snap! Let me pull this back a second, and for some reason, okay, so they do have a sousaphone. They're not using a marching tuba, but a sousaphone is also typically used in marches, and then of course the percussion is all using the braces so that they can mount their instruments to them, which includes the single bass drum, the xylophone, and then the two snares with additional kit. I mean, golly, it's like they're carrying around a full drum kit on them. Anything I missed? I was jamming out a lot during that. I was not paying attention to some of the other stuff. So we got a bari sax, a alto sax, might be a tenor, two trumpets, the sousaphone, and then the percussion. I think that is everyone. Oh, and there's a trombone. I can't forget about the trombonist. Yeah. So, I mean, they cover a lot of the basics for DCI, for drum corps, your percussion and your brass. Interestingly, they also have saxophones. They're made of brass, but they're reeded instruments. So they typically fit inside of marching bands, but not DCI, which is a very honed version of marching band. I don't think I've ever seen a saxophone in drum corps, but don't quote that as fact that there's never been one. They are a brass instrument. They are not typically grouped in with brass instruments because they're reeded, but that's not to say that a saxophone's never shown up in drum corps. So we have this iconography of a marching band, but they don't march. They do a couple of the poses. You saw the trombonist, the snares. They kind of got into that wide-legged stance and did the full body bounce. That is a very marching band thing to do. We've actually seen that a couple of times when we've looked at some DCI stuff in the past. So like I said, they have the visual flair of a marching band without actually doing the marching. And that right there intrigues me. It's an interesting idea because the big thing about a marching band is that they march. It's the big difference between them and any other form of music where you're mostly stationary. It is the fact that you're marching, that you're creating these patterns on the field with the rest of the band. And to take that iconography and then not use any of the distinctive elements of it, But on the flip side, it is cool because this song reminds me of what a marching band might play during a football game while in the stands. We always called them stand tunes. I'm sure that's probably not specific to just my experience. It's a very generic term. Um, but they're catchy, they're bouncy, they're poppy, they get people moving and it energizes the fans or whatever. Um, so that's what this reminds me of. It harkens me back to these days of sitting in the stands and playing these fun, groovy songs that get people amped up. And it reminds me that not only in the style of the music, but also in the visuals of what types of instruments are being played, how they're being held, how they're being supported, the jackets. Um, so it's a very interesting combination of ideas on the visual level. Um, but let's get into the music itself. There isn't a lot going on here. There's some really cool ideas. We got that call and response. We have the sort of hocketed idea of highs and lows that we saw at the beginning, where we had the low notes go boom, and then the trumpets would play a pedal tone, even though it'd be much higher, and the lower notes would be moving around while the trumpets keep nailing this one, and they'd alternate. So you get like this moving steps idea, which is pretty cool. But for the most part, there's three main portions of this song. There's some embellishment going on. There's some ornamentation in some of them, but the song really moves between these three structures. We have the solo segment. We have the what I would say maybe is the verse style of area, which is more subdued. It's usually less energy, more about a build up. And then the big chorus, the bup 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 bup, that everybody gets amped for and everybody's dancing. It's the syncopated part that I was talking about, where they work with these staccato short notes. That are highly syncopated. Some are on beats, some are off beats, and it creates this bouncy funness to it. And everybody joins in. There's not really much going on as far as layers. Pretty much everybody's playing this all together, which gives it the energy and the power that contrasts it with everything else. So we have these three ideas: the solo, the build up, and then the payoff. And we sort of just cycle between those. And the payoff is sort of the most simplistic section, which it needs to be. That's how you get that catchiness, the bounciness. Everybody's playing. You get the power. Like I said, the contrast from the smaller section really makes people want to get into it. But what I think is most notable about this idea is that it lines up a lot with pop music or techno music, where you have your soft section, which builds up into the payoff. And typically how we would call this is the drop, right? That big payoff moment when they're all playing together, it's louder than the rest, everybody wants to dance to it, it's the energetic section. That's the drop. There's actually one section where they actually ramped up the volume. They used some volume dynamics and a crescendo to move into the point, into that chorus. I think it was the first time it came out, and it was this rising energy into the drop, right? This is the code of writing electronica. Um, this is very much in line with what I would say is a pop song or a techno song written in mind of a marching band, and I think that is phenomenal. I think it's one of the things that I think is the biggest problem with classical instruments is not the sounds themselves. I don't think people have issues with trumpets or saxophones. It's usually how they're utilized. A lot of mainstream modern people do not have an ear to listen to jazz or classical, which is where these instruments tend to pop up. They're typically more complex compositions and styles of playing than the mainstream music of radio rock and pop and hip hop. and people just don't have the ear for it, and they end up not liking it, or at least they think they don't like it just because they've never been properly, introduced to it, I think would be the best way of saying that. But it's stuff like this that always reminds me, it's not the instruments. A lot of people, I've maybe not a lot of people, I've heard sometimes over my years that that someone just might not like the sound of these instruments. They prefer the sound of a guitar, or they prefer the sound of a synth. Um, and I don't think it's that. I think it really is the context. You get stuff like this, you're going to attract a crowd that everybody's going to love it because you're using these instruments in a style of writing that makes sense to these people. Um, it is a simpler style of writing. It's more bombastic. It fits into a fairly simple ABAB pattern. The solos thrown in there. But for the most part, we still have that small section, loud section, small section, loud section. We have a very familiar idea of drop with rising volume until we get to the high point, and then we bring in the big section. The music itself is very familiar, even if the tones used to create the music is not. And it's just one of those reminders where I wish that more people would take this approach. I don't know if it is a gateway towards appreciating classical music, but I do think being exposed to these instruments and even the minor things, the call and response, the um, the Hocket style that was used, solos, no vocals. I think that is one of the big ones. Is a lot of people tend to not like instruments, at least instrumentals. At least from my experience, talking to people who are not musicians, who weren't in band class growing up, in high school or whatever. Just your average people who enjoy pop music or radio rock, whatever's popular, country, hip hop, stuff like that. Is that they need words. If there aren't words, they're bored. That is my experience. I've heard that so many times. I don't want to say that that is true everywhere. That is just a fringe case in my life. I don't want to extrapolate that and be incorrect, but I have heard that a lot. And I think this is just another reminder that no, not a reminder. The solo here is interesting because it seems a lot of people enjoyed it, even though there's no vocals, no lyrics. And like I said, it's just a reminder to me that I wish more people would take instruments like these and continue to write pop music. Maybe we could see some big pop engineers or pop singers go this route, kind of get rid of the digital and get some, live instruments in there, and really help the mainstream audiences get accustomed to hearing stuff like this. Like I said, I don't know if it is a gateway into listening to classical and jazz, getting that appreciation, but it really can't hurt. It really can't. I feel like these instruments just don't really get enough spotlight these days against guitars and synths and pianos. So that's sort of like my big takeaway here. It's just a reminder. And the thing is I used to see stuff like this. I live in Florida. We have a lot of theme parks here. I've been to a lot of theme parks. One of the nice things about being a resident around a theme park area, you tend to know somebody who works there, and people who work there get free tickets. And the thing is I see stuff like this. They always have them. Maybe it might be a jazz setup. Maybe it's a drum line. I know SeaWorld used to have a three-piece drum line. They were dressed as cooks, and they brought out pans and stuff, and they just made this phenomenal like rhythmic stuff out of these mundane items. And they always draw crowds. And I think I forgot that just because of COVID. I ain't been there in a long time. But people love this kind of stuff, but it just seems to still be so rare. It's I don't know. I wish it was more popular. I think is what I'm going for at the end of all this. Just live music with acoustic instruments. in big groups like this, especially acoustic instruments that tend to be utilized in jazz and classical. And some of that, like I said, I just kind of wish more mainstream groups would do this. I think one of the big things when we checked out Dua Lipa is "Don't Stop, Can't Stop." I don't remember what that song was called. Um, "Don't Start." I don't remember. But yeah, one of the big things that my takeaway on that was that it sounded like a pop song, but we had all these acoustic instruments in it rather than synths, and that should not be a big takeaway for me. That should not be surprising to me. That a song actually utilizes instruments. Um, so yeah, I know there wasn't a lot of analysis in here about the music itself, but again, like I said, it's very simplistic. It follows a set pattern. It doesn't really do anything crazy. I think the biggest shift for me was the move from the bombastic chord progressions to the more introspective, melancholy ones. Maybe pensive, not melancholy. There's a pensive area in there that surprised me. I don't really know how it fits, but I enjoyed that it was there. I think one of the strong parts with this group, or at least this song, is contrast. They have very good volume dynamics. They have good contrast between ideas, the lows and the highs. They have very good contrast in their musical stylings. Even in this song alone, we had the bombastic, chorus, for lack of better words, and the more quieter, down the earth kind of stuff that led up to it. Some nice back and forth stuff, some nice all together, just really good dynamics all throughout this song. Um, I can't leave before solos. Both of the solos, well, both of the soloists. The saxophonist had two solos. Then we had the trumpet solo at the end. Phenomenal, phenomenal solos. I don't know if they were off the cuff, if they were improvised or not, but the flow of them is just really well done, especially contrasted with a lot of the more riff-based repeated lines that took up the rest of the song. Having these really strong 16 to 24 bar melody lines that are fully fleshed out from start to finish, and it's one phrase, one single idea from start to finish, rather than being cut up into 4 bar phrases or being loop based themselves. It was just such a strong contrast, and I loved it. There wasn't a lot of showmanship. I am a sucker for trumpets just blasting a high note, and I was really hoping that one of those parts, the trumpet would just kind of, yeah, just get something real high up there, just because. But it didn't happen, and that's fine. Doesn't always need to happen in every song. I'm just a sucker for it, and we get so little trumpet on the channel. I suppose the few times we get it, I'm really looking for it, especially since most of the stuff we've checked out with trumpet has been DCI, and DCI is always well known for having some note in the song, in the in one of the songs, just be just really high, nailing a note. Um, yeah, I guess I shouldn't expect it all the time. Maybe if we checked out more trumpet based works, I could get my fill enough that I'm not always looking forward to it. But yeah, regardless though, like I said, the solo lines were just beautiful, well done, great pacing, great storytelling, just gorgeous stuff. Loved it. So yeah, I'm gonna have to look more into these guys. I can't say I've ever heard of them before, which is a bit sad. This is something that's right up my alley, and I should have found or something in my own searches until now. I should not have been introduced to this band through a reaction channel. This is something I should have known about. I'm gonna have to find my friends or something and be like, "Yo, why'd you never tell me about this?" Oh man, so those are my thoughts on Mute, You and Me, Flume Remix. This is where you guys come. Oh, it's even called a remix. I'm interested in what the original sounds like compared to this. But the idea that they've already remixed their own track, Wait. Getting ready for summer with a live performance of their new version of Disclosure and Eliza Doolittle's track "You and Me," originally remixed by Flume. So there is somebody's song called "You and Me." Somebody else remixed it, and they arranged the remix of a pop song. I assume it's a pop song for their group. That changes the whole dynamic. That changes the whole dynamic. I don't even know where to start with this because they didn't write this music now, they performed it, they're arrangers, which explains some of the sparsity, especially during the chorus, which I'm going to fully call a chorus now. Um, why it's so simplified, why everybody comes in for the same idea. And it removes a lot of the back and forth that we saw in the quieter section before it. The idea that this is a pop song remixed to give it probably more of a techno edge, and then remixed to be arranged, or not remixed, but rearranged for this group, makes a lot more sense now. And it actually makes me happier that they're solo sections. Again, I don't know if those solos are arranged, are taking from ideas that were in the original song, or maybe the remix, or if they're completely original works to be played on top of this. But the fact that they have room for solos is pretty cool. Um, yeah, wow, that completely changes the way I look at this. Um, is this what they always do? Do they have original works? I think it would is my next question. Now, I don't think I had any follow-up questions other than where should I explore next. But now, if you're a fan of this group, do they have original works? I think that's what would interest me the most. I'm still thinking about the fact that this is a pop song remixed and then arranged. Um, okay, that's blowing my mind. All right, so comments. If you're fan of MEUTE, where should I move on to next? What should I look at next? And also, as I said, do they have any original works? I don't mind listening to more of their pop arrangements or remixed pop arrangements. This was a very fun time. I really enjoyed listening to this, and it really takes me back. There's a nice nostalgia element to that as well. Um, but I'm really curious about their compositional side now rather than their arrangement side and performance. They're obviously very what is that? They have showmanship in their performance. That's for sure. They really provide that energy and can draw the crowd and do all the cool things that performers are supposed to do, especially in sort of this setting where you're amping up a crowd rather than sitting in a an auditorium playing classical music. You're not really looking for showmanship there. You're looking for the musicianship aspect. I think they have a very good um, combination, a nice middle point between showmanship and musicianship. Um, but yeah, so I'm looking for their compositionship now. I don't think that's a word. How good they are at composing. If you enjoyed this, let me know anything that stuck out to you. If this bounced off of you, also you can let me know why. Anything specifically you just didn't enjoy. When you're done commenting, you can head up to the description box. There's a link for Linktree up in there. Linktree is a nice little menu for everything adjacent to the channel. Whether you want to check out the Discord, the Twitter, you want to support the channel through Patreon, it's all in there. And then also like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, with this weekend's first special selection. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.